So our brain is made up of over 100 billion neurons, commonly referred to as our brain cells. For every one neuron the brain has, it has the capacity to connect up to 10,000 other neurons. And it does this across a small gap known as a synapse. Now, when you're learning to do something for the first time, that synapse creates some initial connections. And then as you repeat that behavior, that neural pathway is more cemented and that connection becomes stronger. And this is how the brain forms habits. So the brain loves to form habits. It's always looking for opportunities to create neural pathways because it's much easier for the brain to operate off habits than it is to create new neural pathways every time. So the challenge is that sometimes inadvertently, we actually start to create neural pathways for habits that aren't really serving us, and in fact are getting in the way of us achieving the results that we want. Now, this process doesn't necessarily happen immediately and can take some time before that synapse is strong enough. So a good example of this that most people can relate to is around learning how to ride a bike. Perhaps you're fortunate enough to be young enough to remember when you learned how to ride a bike, or perhaps you've recently taught a child how to ride a bike. And you'll notice that initially, when you first take those training wheels off, you can watch their brain working really hard to work out how to move those pedals and how to maintain balance along the way. Now, if we were to have a look in that child's brain, we will see that those synapses are being formed and that neural pathway is being carved out. And as you watch that child continue to practice moving through those pedals, it continues to get stronger and stronger, to the point that it's like riding a bike. Now, for many of us, we ride a bike a lot as a child, and then we get into our adult years, and perhaps we've gone quite a bit of time before we've got on a bike. And so the first time we get back on that bike, it can initially feel a little bit awkward and uncomfortable. But what you'll notice is that as you continue to try and practice, you're reinvigorating that neural pathway, and it's like riding a bike. It all comes back to you. So the interesting thing about our synapses is that once they're formed, they never actually go away. But if we haven't used them for a long time, they fade a little bit, kind of going into the archives of the brain. Now, what does this have to do with leadership and the workplace? So what we know is that when our people are learning a new system or practice for the first time, or perhaps even a skill, they're not going to get it right straight away. It takes some time for their brain to form that neural pathway. So as a leader, it's really important to hold that in compassion in our head and make sure that we are providing a brain-friendly environment for them to learn in a way that's realistic for them to increase our chances of success. Can you think of a recent example where someone in your team has struggled to pick up something new? Did you manage it in a brain-friendly way?